Hello and welcome to Castle Talk, where we talk to writers and creators of today's genre worlds. I'm your host, Jason Henderson, author of the new book, The Bookman from Castlebridge Media, which is out this June. Tonight, Adrianna Gober is a writer and musician based out of Philadelphia, PA. She is a lifelong horror fan, still can't quite believe that she is lucky enough to spin that into a career. And here it is. Get this. She currently serves as director of programming for Midnight Movie Society, an extreme, and I want to know what that means, extreme horror cult SVOD service from Rue Morgue, the well-known magazine, and MVD Entertainment Group. Welcome, Adrianna.
Thank you, Jason.
Midnight Movie Society. OTT, I got it on my Roku, and it's an SVOD service, meaning what? Subscription?
Yes, subscription video on demand.
So the focus of Midnight Movie Society, what I find really interesting is you guys could have gone in any direction, but you've gone in the direction of, I don't even know, you called it extreme horror cult. What goes into programming an OTT service like this?
Well, I think I should start by talking a little bit about the genesis of the platform.
Yeah, please.
So what happened was MVD was experiencing, a lot of frustration with the larger streaming platforms like Amazon and Google Play, because a lot of their labels were, uploading content to these platforms, and that content was getting pulled over and over again because of, very restrictive content guidelines.
Really?
And so MVD started to think, how can we create a space, for these films to be seen, because, they deserve to find an audience. And so, the gears started turning, and they decided that they were going to launch their own streaming service. They reached out to Rue Morgue, and then when it came time to find a curator for the service, I was friends with some of the folks at MVD, and I'm a film programmer. I go to a lot of film screenings in the greater Philadelphia area, and so they just knew about me, and they invited me to be a part of the project, and that's kind of how it all got started. So when it comes to deciding what gets on the platform, for a long time, and this has started to change now, but when we launched, and for about the first year or so. We launched in September. I was kind of drawing exclusively from the MVD film library.
Okay.
So films from labels that, were distributed by MVD. So, for example, Unearthed Films, Wild Eye and Wild Eye Raw, Severin, a lot of labels like that specialize in indie films and, a little bit more niche genre stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been working with primarily, although now, I'm starting to get more into acquisitions, and branching out and acquiring new titles.
When I think of like Severin, I think of
mostly they do like narrative films. So, for example, some of the stuff of theirs that I have on Midnight Movie Society is The Beast in Heat, a Nazi exploitation feature. Next of Kin, which is sort of
the
supernatural exploitation. Yes. Invasion of the Blood Farmers, stuff like that.
Do you find that people, it's so funny because when I explain that, like let's say you're on a 30-second lunch with somebody, you sit down and you go, hey, what are you into? And I'll say, I personally am into grungy Euro horror from, the late 60s and early 70s typically. That people just sort of blink and stare because that is such a weird thing. It's so like specific. I mean, the internet, you can find your tribe, right? There's going to be other people who are into that, but it must be so strange, sort of, to put together a collection that's supposed to appeal to the people in that group and a larger group, because you do have stuff that's much newer than that, depending on what people are into. But it's I don't even know exactly what my question is here, other than it must be difficult to explain what these movies are to people who aren't into it already.
Yeah, it kind of is, and also I feel like it requires a lot to context.
Right.
And that's not always easy to impart.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Who are, well, I mean, let's just use some of these films that were removed from Amazon. So, the American Guinea Pig series, for example. trying to explain
Yes.
that to someone who is not overly familiar with the horror genre is kind of difficult, because you not only have to go into the history of the original guinea pig film series, you have to explain what gore films are,
Yeah.
and then you would have to explain how Stephen Biro revived the series, and there's just a lot of history there. So yeah, usually if somebody asks me about the service, I kind of try to keep it simple. And then
Yeah.
if they seem genuinely interested, then I'll get more into the granular stuff.
I liked what you said about context, because it is really strange, to try to explain. I like the guinea pig stuff. Frankly, me, where I'm coming from, that's too rough for me. Even, I'll watch it. It's not to my taste. I'm not against it. I obviously think that it should exist. It's not my thing. Whereas, you said, hey, let's chat, and you threw a Jess Franco movie at me, which is this like sleazy slasher film from the '70s. Delightful, and but both of these would be very, very difficult to. I'm just trying to think how difficult they might be to defend against all kinds of complaints from people. I mean, all the reasons that they get pulled down from Amazon are still going to be true. There's exploitation here. There's certainly, Jesus Christ, you have a lot of what I'd call Nazi exploitation movies, and that stuff is difficult to explain, like why it exists. Do you find yourself in those conversations often?
Every once in a while, but I don't mind having them. I'm a big proponent of sort of being able to contextualize what you watch, and being able to understand it, and to view things critically, and to have difficult discussions. I don't think being a film lover and being a lover of exploitation cinema means that you can't be critical about things. And so, I think it's important to have those conversations. So I do find myself, discussing these things with people from time to time. Usually not too much with the hardcore cinephiles, but just, people who are not, you use the term tribe. So often people who aren't part of that tribe, they might not really understand it from, looking at it from the outside. So, I'm
Yeah.
happy to engage with them.
Sure, because you got to have an ambassador, right? If you're doing a screening here in Denver, we have the C Film Center, right, which shows just all kinds of films, be they exploitation or mainstream. And Teresa Mercado is the programmer here, and you have to be able to come up with what you're going to show, and you got to get up on the stage and explain it to people if they've especially if there's somebody who's been dragged out, by their roommates. You have to. I want you to
Right.
see Jess Franco and understand it. Let me ask you a question, because I watch this on my Roku, right? And I'm a huge Roku guy. I've got 3 in the house. How hard is it because you're probably having business meetings all the time. Hey, what are we going to do to grow in the next quarter, and so forth? Like, talk to me as a programmer. What is on your mind on trying to figure out how to grow your service? Is it getting more content, or getting what you have in front of new audiences? I mean, what do you have to do?
Yeah, well, we've mostly been focusing on just outreach, trying to reach as many people as we possibly can through marketing. We've had discussions as well about branching out to different platforms. We have a Roku app, as you know.
Yep.
We also have an iOS app, excuse me. But I would like to eventually get on Fire Stick.
Mm-hmm.
And PS4, or I guess now soon PS5, and that sort of thing. But mostly, we've been prior to COVID-19, we were going out to a lot of conventions as well. We were at Frightmare in the Falls in Canada, Monster Mania in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, a lot of the big horror conventions, just because I really like interfacing with other horror fans, because,
Sure.
it has that personal touch. Like, I can look them in the eye and nerd out with them about films, and they kind of get a better sense of what the platform is about and where I'm coming from as a curator. So
Yeah.
the conventions have been working out really well for us. So hopefully we can get back to that when things get back to normal, whenever that turns out to be.
Have you thought about, I'm not pitching this for the series, but it just strikes me as Joe Bob has been having such a great time this past. He got lucky, because I don't think they knew that COVID was going to happen. But live events online have become a thing, where people say, not just with Joe Bob, but they'll go, hey, we're going to watch Chainsaw, and we're going to be on Twitter for the next 12 hours watching all the Chainsaw movies and so forth. There are people desperately trying to recreate the event, the live event by putting it online. Have you been interested in that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. So we are planning more watch parties for the summer. So that's definitely something I'm interested in doing, especially because, you have that little chat box that you can type into, and you can use that to promote as well. And it's just fun.
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds really fabulous. Are you planning on doing a presentation at the beginning, like explaining what people are going to be watching or whatever?
Yes, and that's normally what I do. For the films that I program and host too, at the local art house cinema where I program. I'm just a big fan of, again, like providing context for what people are about to watch, because that's just what I like. I like knowing about the history behind films that I'm watching. So I try to share that as much as I can.
Absolutely. No, I mean, for me, in fact, you can take 3 films that I'm not particularly interested in by themselves, but if you, Adrianna, explain to me that there's a context that strings them together, and there's a reason that I'll understand something new. I'll get something out of if I watch the 3 of them or just 2 of them together, and you bridge that with a 20-minute lecture at the beginning. I'm in hog heaven, because then, I will listen to your lecture and I'll watch the 2 movies because I feel like I've learned something, which I wouldn't be that interested in if I just watched the first film by itself. And that's just
Totally.
that's just being a geek, honestly. But wow. Okay, so can I ask you a quick question about the film that you pitched to me? I said, hey, leave me an assignment, something to watch before we talk. And it was what was it? The Sadist of Notre Dame, right? By Jess Franco. Okay, there's something weird about this movie, because it seems to me it's sort of like the Exorcism movie that Mario Bava did, where he's cobbled this movie together from a couple of pictures. Is that right? So tell me the weird history of this film, which is, by the way, available on Midnight Movie Society.
Yep, I mean that's kind of it. So Jess Franco made a film called I believe it was called The Exorcist or Exorcism,
something like that.
And so he basically used a lot of he reappropriated elements from that film to make a new film, which became The Sadist of Notre Dame. And I just find that sort of thing fascinating. The creative impulse and the inclination that some creative people have to kind of constantly try to rewrite or improve upon their past works. Like it's just never complete for them. And so this is a really fascinating example of that phenomenon.
What's funny about that?
And I actually think The Sadist of Notre Dame is better than the previous film.
I mean, it could very well be. It reminds me a lot. I mean, it's a lot raunchier than, but nevertheless, it reminds me a lot of like Lisa and the Devil, which became House of Exorcism. So that's 1973 to 75. And that one, it was Bava, and he took Lisa and the Devil, which maybe did fine, whatever. And then he added a whole bunch of new elements to create a new movie. And, yes, there's a time saving and a cost saving element to that, but it creates a new work. That just fascinates me. I'm fascinated by trying to track, because it's detective work to try to track down like how these 2 works came to be. But Sadist of Notre Dame was fascinating. I really dug that. I mean, I think it was wild. So yes. So what do you have? Is there anything coming up or on there right now that you really recommend people should go do the trial, check it out, and I mean, I guess if you have some kind of a Twitter box, they could contact you and let you know how it worked.
Sure. Well, coming up, we have some exclusive titles that we're going to be adding. I think maybe I can share one title with you right now. This will be an exclusive for your show. We have a new release coming from Wild Eye Raw called The Streets Run Red, and so we're going to be having that as an exclusive title. It'll be a 2-week window in July that it will be streaming only on Midnight Movie Society before it moves to other platforms. So we're pretty excited about that. We might do a watch party for that as well.
Oh, you should. That sounds wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like a blast. The Streets Run Red. Okay. Is this the one from 2017?
I believe it's a new release.
Oh, okay. All right. Very cool. All right. If you send me some links about it, then when you're ready to promote it, I'll totally let people know everywhere.
Awesome.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed looking at this, especially, because there's different things people are into. Like I say, I'm totally a grunge fest mid-70s guy. So there's, all the like the Vampirus Lesbos and all this great stuff. I'm totally into this. Other people are into the splatter movies. They're definitely there. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about what goes into this, Adrianna. And let us know when your watch party happens, and we will make sure and promote it for you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely will. Thank you, and thank you. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening. I'll talk to you soon.
You too. Bye bye.
Ciao.